So let's get started, everyone. Welcome to the session. This is a very important topic for India on how India can improve the ease of doing business. And we couldn't have a better lineup of speakers to talk about it. Quick mechanics on the discussion. It'll go on for about 40 minutes. And then we'll have about 20 minutes of Q&A after that. So if you want to submit your questions, please click in on the Q&A button below and you can type in your questions. Those that will be most upvoted will be picked up by our moderator for the Q&A session. With that, I'll quickly introduce our speakers and then our moderator can get started with the conversation. Our moderator for today is Smita Prakash ji. She's the editor of Asian News International, which is South Asia's leading multimedia news agency. She has more than 30 years of journalistic experience, having started anchoring television shows in the 1990s, and has along the way hosted programs from around the world, from South Africa to the United States, and of course, India. Ma'am, thank you for being our moderator today. Our first panelist is Union Minister Nitin Gadkari. He's the current Minister for Road Transport and Highways and the Minister of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises in the Government of India. Before taking charge of these ministries, Minister Gadkari served as the President of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the national political party of the current ruling government. He's undoubtedly one of the star performers of Prime Minister Modi's cabinet, having revolutionized road and highway construction in India over the last 6 years. When he took charge of the ministry in 2014, national roads were being constructed at a rate of 12 kilometers per day. Fast forward to 2019, the rate has more than doubled to 30 kilometers a day. He's credited with cleaning up the corrupt and inefficient ministry and its processes, clearing backlogs worth billions of dollars and allowing smaller contractors to compete and win projects along the way. Sir, thank you for joining us today. Our second panelist is Dr. Shashi Tharoor, one of India's most prolific statesmen. He's had multiple successful careers as an international technocrat for the United Nations, as a politician in India, and as an author of both fiction and non-fiction books. He was the Under Secretary General of the United Nations under Kofi Annan's leadership and was India's nominee for the Secretary General elections in the UN in 2007. Thereafter, he returned to India and contested the Lok Sabha elections successfully in 2009 and has been a member of parliament since then from Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. During his time in government, he served as the Minister of State for External Affairs and Human Resources Development. He has written 22 books. I think most people have probably not even read as many, and is a frequent columnist in leading publications and a sought-after speaker at leading forums around the world. Thanks for being here today, sir. And with that, I'll pass the floor on to Ms. Prakash to take the conversation forward. Ma'am, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Tharoor's video is still not on. Thank you all the same for this opportunity, India Conference at Harvard. I am thrilled to be part of this conference, though I would have loved to be there in person. I hope I get an opportunity to visit your campus soon. I'm of course honored to moderate a conversation between Mr. Nitin Gadkari and Mr. Shashi Tharoor. And as you rightly said, both are very experienced administrators and parliamentarians of formidable repute. Mr. Gadkari, my question to you first. Hopefully Mr. Tharoor's video will come on. Mr. Gadkari, India's global rankings for ease of doing business has improved, but it's still in the 60s. We feature not at the top half of the list, but at the bottom half of the list. For ease of doing business, one needs transparent and competitive public policies. These are prerequisites. There's an apprehension among global investors that the Modi government's India First policy, in this policy, there may not be a level playing field for foreign players, and that domestic firms have an unfair advantage. In other words, that India is moving more and more towards protectionism. Do you agree with that perception?
First of all, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, our government is very much committed for ease of business. We are very much committed for corruption-free, transparent, time-bound, result-oriented, positive administrative system. And actually, one fact which I am going to accept that from last many years, our systems, there are a lot of problems and complications. Our government has taken a decision, at least 1,500 laws are already closed by the government, and this is a historical and revolutionary decision taken by our Prime Minister and our government. But one thing I don't have any hesitation to accept, still we need to improve more. every department, there is lot of rate trapism in a system. The decisions, there is no time period. And that is one of the reason it creates a lot of corruption. And that is the reason that we are facing the problem. Related, but is not with central government. You go into the details of municipal laws for sanctioning of maps in corporation, it takes too much time and there are a lot of delays. Even in a municipal corporation, then after that district panchayat administration, then state government, where we need to make the research and study of all the laws. And we now presently we are using technology. The information technology is the future. First of all, we have taken a lot of decision by which now the whole system is digitalized. Now for driving license to having the card, different type of cards, and is the success story of fast track in NHI. This is all we are moving towards a digital system, and by which we need to make simplification in our laws, transparency, time-bound approach. And the most important problem in Indian system is not taking decision in appropriate time. And that is one of the reasons that people are fed up because of it. My only uh, recommendation to you that presently this is the time for the government because the positivity is there. The whole administration and the prime minister is very committed for administrative reform, perform and transform. That is exactly the mission of our government. And for that reason, we are now trying to change a lot of things. But there are some problems which are not in the hands of the government. Presently, the judiciary, where government cannot make any interference in it. I'm giving you an example. In NCLT, in Delhi, the decision-making process is stopped because of we don't have the appropriate judges there. And that is exactly where we are waiting for the decisions. I always telling to the people, and that is very hard statement I am making. I know the consequences of this statement, but the people who are getting salary every month, at first, they never understand what is the meaning of time. And
So
to
we
delay the
expect
decision.
you to say, we expect you to say harsh things, whether you're in government or whether in the opposition. You have always been absolutely transparent in your criticism about systems which have pulled down, decision making in India. So, but your government has been in power for 6 years, and this is the 7th year, sir. So then, what is the excuse still?
Already in the World Bank record also, our ease of business rank is improved. No doubt, it is the first time in the history of Indian democracy. It is the contribution of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji that we have changed a lot of things. But still, neither the Modi ji is satisfied, neither I am satisfied. Still, we need more for that. And that is exactly the need of the hour. But we need to identify where is the problem in the system, small system, small schemes. Where is the delay? Where is exactly there is transparency or not? Where is the corruption is going on? So we need to identify the system, not from starting from municipal administration, state government administration, central government administration, our lot of particularly the public undertaking, and then particularly the judiciary, and everywhere we need to make reform. So the complete reform in all sectors will give 100% good result to the country. That is exactly my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Gadkari. I'll take this forward to Mr. Tharoor. I'm hoping that he can hear me, though we can't see you, Mr. Tharoor. You have said in Parliament and outside that the Indian economy has all but collapsed due to several factors beyond just the pandemic. You list demonetization, poor governance, misplaced priorities of the Modi government as reasons why almost everything is wrong in India. I mean, if I was to go by your parliament speech, everything seems to be wrong in India today. Prime Minister Modi, meanwhile, doesn't hesitate to say that many of the policy decisions that he has taken have been articulated by your governments in the past, but it couldn't be put into practice because either your government lacked the will. It was termed as policy paralysis, if you recall then. or it didn't have the numbers in parliament. So do you agree with that, that many of Modi government's decisions are actually Congress government's ideas that were not put into practice? One, that. And the second is that what in your view has the Modi government done, which you think has been the undoing of the good of the Manmohan Singh government? Mr. Tharoor, can you hear me? I think we can't hear. Should I take this question to, I think I'll take this question to Mr. Gadkari till Mr. Tharoor logs in. Mr. Gadkari, is this right? I mean, the opposition says that a number of decisions that you take are actually Congress party decisions and Congress party policies which you are putting into action. In fact, Mr. Modi, even in his parliament speech, said, pointed towards Dr. Singh and said, you know, you could put this into action. So is it actually that you have done like a crowdsourcing of ideas and you don't really have any misgivings in putting into practice something which was a Congress party decision or idea?
Actually, frankly speaking, politics, to play politics is the right of every politician and political party. Because once upon a time, I was also the president of the BJP. So people are expecting that when the party is opposition party, they are supposing that they are expecting that this party should oppose the policies of the ruling government. And that is exactly the people are expecting the role of opposition. My only suggestion to the matured and good politicians like Shashi Tharoor and Manmohan Singh ji, that most important thing is we are all committed for progress and development of the country. We should not politicalize the subjects which are of the national interest. There may be difference of opinion, so it is the right of the opposition party to criticize the whatever the decision taken by the ruling party. But sometimes the ruling party, which is presently ruling party, after that is become opposition party. When opposition party people, they are coming, changing their position, coming to ruling party. And in a democratic process, 100%, this is a natural process which is going on. What my feeling is as a nationalist, that this is the time for the country that we need to have unanimity for some important national interest issues. Regarding our economy, the eradication of poverty is the 100% agenda for all political parties. Creating employment potential is everywhere agenda for all political parties. Good infrastructure, it is also the expectation from all political parties. Or related with the power, water, transport, communication, everywhere, there are no difference of opinion. My suggestion is, but there may be some difference of opinion, maybe. And it is the really a sense of democracy that India is the largest democracy in the world. So we should be very liberal about the opposition party. And suppose they have any policy criticism, we don't have any problem. We can answer them. So my suggestion is, this is the time for the country when we want to make India as one of the number one global economy in the world. We need at least cooperation, coordination, and communication between the stakeholders. It is ruling party and the opposition party. And I also admit that I know that there is a limitation in opposition party. When I was the president of BJP, every time the people was expecting how I am going to oppose the policy of the ruling party. That is the expectation of the people by and large. So I don't want to blame Shashi Tharoor or anybody for taking the views about it, because it is very important for their survival also, because without public support, it is difficult to run the politics. But somewhere, I feel that some of the issue that for the national interest, we should have unanimity, and that can be for the national interest.
So, Mr. Gadkari, till we get Mr. Tharoor online, I'm going to be Mr. Tharoor out here, and I'm going to be accusing you or your government till he comes online. Because, you know, in Parliament, he has quite vociferously argued, Mr. Tharoor has argued, that none of your government's stimulus plans have inspired confidence, at least among investors, foreign investors or domestic investors. Mr. Tharoor has said that your government has mismanaged both COVID as well as the economy. So there he is. Good to see you, Mr. Tharoor. I hope you can hear me. No, your audio is muted. Correct. Can't hear you. I'm sorry. There's some problem with the audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely, perfectly.
Okay, nothing is working. My profound apologies. I've been sitting here from 7:20 and trying to connect to you all, but I'm delighted that I'm finally connected. I listened to much of what Nitin Gadkari was saying while trying to get connected to all of you, and my renewed apologies to the audience for this confusion. So anyway, here I am on a different device, and I just want to say that you asked me a provocative question.
I was trying to paraphrase, and I was trying to be Mr. Tharoor. Then now that's really hard to do. I'm not as articulate.
I don't think I could do justice to being Smita Prakash, so that's all right. I'm sure you can do a better job of me. I just want to say that, I actually took note when Nitin Bhai mentioned India's improved ranking in the ease of doing business, but he must not be unaware that unfortunately what happened was that the World Bank decided to scrap the rankings altogether because of complaints that these rankings were far too easily manipulated. And I think we've all heard about some of the challenges that arose because of the fact that our own government was accused of sort of gaming the system in rising from 142nd to 77th. Partially by we're very good at taking exams, not necessarily good at learning. We got very good at gaming the rankings, but we haven't actually done enough to change the ease of doing business. And that's where I am a great admirer of Nitin Gadkari's. He knows that because I've seen him at work. And in particular, I've seen his work in my own constituency, where he has been an absolute enabler and an ally when it comes to getting a highway bypass done that really had been stuck for 40 years before I was able to unblock it in the first instance during the UPA 2 and then see it through to completion under his leadership in the ministry. So I'm perfectly conscious that sometimes some ministers can push their way through. But my concern, you were paraphrasing me, Smita, my concern is that while I completely support improving the ease of doing business, it can only be when, number one, the benefits do not only go to a small clique of well-connected people and neglect ordinary Indians, and two, that doesn't come at the cost of all the other indicators. I mean, let's face the fact, Nitin Bhai, that even before the pandemic, there is data released in 2019 that showed more than 36% of registered companies in India had shut down, 686,80,000 companies with millions of livelihoods ruined. More than 80% of non-agricultural employment, as we know, is still in the informal sector. And that excludes a vast majority of Indian workers from the personal and professional benefits that come with formal labor registration. So while we're talking about very many good signs, let's face it, as a percentage of GDP, FDI has been stagnant at around 2.3 to 2.6% since UPA was there, 2014. And I'm sorry to say that when we talk about increased FDI, the majority of it was driven by just one company, Reliance's Jio Platforms. Now, the fact is that's an investment in creating digital assets, not in real ones that actually mean job creation for ordinary Indian workers and improving people's livelihoods. So I would say that one of the challenges we have is that the real ease of doing business has to be in routine, ground level factors and conditions that Indian businesses and workers face, that we do need all these sort of formal things like getting permission to start a business more quickly, electricity connections, construction permits, property registration, contract enforcement, resolving insolvency. And while some progress has been made, Smita asked me to mention an example of something we started, you took over, and the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was a UPA draft that you passed with our support when you came to power, because we said we wanted to pass this. But instead, we do have, unfortunately, a perception that in India still, there's not the kind of respect we'd like to see for time, for administering issues and moving files, for judicial resolution, for what business people like to call policy certainty, regulatory certainty. You know, the very government that attacked tax terrorism has become far worse in tax terrorism than the UPA ever was. And now we're looking also at a level of intrusiveness and micromanagement through regulation that hasn't done ease of doing business any good. So at a practical level, once you forget things like the World Bank rankings and just look at the experience of business people, I know, Nitin Bhai, that you know a lot of business people in Maharashtra who are friends of yours who will tell you their own experiences. I have spoken to a lot of people who are not necessarily friends of mine and who are probably happier to see your government in power, but they are today talking about continuing frustrations when it comes to ease of doing business. And that the multifaceted rules, procedures, approvals, scrutinies are dragging on in their lives. So let's be honest and say that one of the things we do need to do, and I agree with Nitin Gadkari that it should be beyond politics, we need India to grow so that every Indian can be prosperous. On that, there is no disagreement. But
So
imply that everything was bad at one time and this government has suddenly made everything easy is simply not true. Nitin Gadkari gets things done, but India as a whole is not particularly improved in the last 6 years. And you can talk to a random sampling of businessmen, they'll compare what they will confirm what I'm saying.
So this is the reason why I said that I cannot be Mr. Tharoor, because here he is reeling facts and being extremely articulate while doing it. One thing I have to say, Mr. Tharoor, that, you know, it's okay to admit that you have friends as businessmen or businessmen as friends. Let's move out of that, you know, that mindset that these are demons and not meant to be friends.
No. I'm saying they're not necessarily my friends, and many of them are indeed my friends. And one of the reasons I speak with feeling is, you know, I'm just going around Kerala talking to various kinds of people in order to get inputs for my party's manifesto in the Kerala Assembly elections. And two of the groups I've spoken with will be of interest to this conversation. One was businessmen and another was startup entrepreneurs. And I can tell you, I wish Nitin Gadkari was with me to hear some of the stories of problems that businesses are having, the women-owned businesses, startup entrepreneurship started by women. There have been a number of issues and problems in which, honestly, our system has not been particularly easy to deal with. Now,
I have a question on entrepreneurship, and Mr. Tharoor, I'm going to interrupt you there. I have this question on entrepreneurs and the problems they face, and I am going to take it to the minister. Mr. Gadkari, you know, your party came to power. Corruption is a major issue. Corruption is the reason why probably these hurdles are caused and they don't foster entrepreneurship in our country. And Mr. Tharoor would have probably got this complaint when he toured Kerala. And when you go in the rest of the country, you know, your party came to power in 2014 on this anti-corruption platform. Not the Aam Aadmi Party, I'm talking about you. Some say it was because of hyper-nationalism that India voted, but even your harshest critics will say, will not accuse your government of rampant or unbridled corruption. Mr. Rahul Gandhi is a different matter. He, of course, accuses your government of corruption. But, you know, how does the government reduce corruption? I don't say eliminate, because it's endemic in Asia or in India to a large extent. But to what degree can corruption be reduced so that, you know, government, at least in procurement, in implementing contracts, you can at least move forward? And many foreign players say that transparency is lacking in India. Entrepreneurs say the same thing, that it doesn't foster because of corruption at various levels.
Actually, frankly speaking, from last 5 years and now presently this 1.5 years, there is no scandal in our government, particularly no one can blame for that related with the corruption. Actually, they are making allegations. I'm giving you the example that my department, actually previously I was Minister for Water Resources, then shipping, ports, then with the MSMEs now. I'm just giving you an example. Actually, in my last 5 years, we awarded works more than 17 lakh crores. When I was Minister for Shipping, Ports, Transport, Road Ministry, and for Ganga rejuvenation, and awarded the contracts. And presently, for this year, we are 100% going to complete the work award more than 7 lakh crore. So there is not a single complaint, single allegation. All system is e-governance is there. I can ask to anybody that anyone can challenge for any corruption. As far as any contractor don't need to come to me. We are taking hard decisions, transparency and corruption free system. But actually, still I will admit one thing on the grassroots level, particularly in the state government administration, central government administration, we cannot claim that the corruption is removed. But as compared with the regime of previous government, at that time there are a lot of things, 2G and other things. I don't go into the details about it. But there was a lot of political controversies and other thing and allegation. Compare with that situation, presently this regime is quite free from corruption, and we have already improved the transparency and also the targets for the infrastructure, target for different schemes already very much fulfilled by the government. But still,
Mr. Gadkari, I just want to interrupt you. The Prime Minister admitted when we talk about corruption, I do want to move to the Indian bureaucracy. And you have said that the Indian bureaucracy is incompetent, inefficient, corrupt. Prime Minister Modi said that it spoiled the first 5 years in office. You said that in October. He said that last week. He sent out a sharp warning that he won't let the next 5 years be ruined. You've spoken about it several times about deadwood in Indian public sector undertakings. So if there is a kind of a consensus in your government and you have the numbers in parliament, do we expect some major revamping in the months ahead of the Indian bureaucracy to make it more, more efficient and more reactive to entrepreneurship, manufacturing, everything?
I always remember one thing. Jiska Raja Bepari, uski Janta Bhikari. Government is not supposed to run the business. And that is exactly this investment was very important for this government. So the people, the organization, the corporates, the public enterprises, the undertaking, government, those who are incompetent, economically non-viable, loss-making, our government has taken a bold decision for making disinvestment of all these people. Now, exactly, you just take an example of particularly the telecommunication. Actually, I remember when I was a college student, I need to make phone to Nagpur to Mumbai. It was costing me 66 rupees. But because of competition now, it comes to 40 paisa. I remember when I was traveled from Nagpur to Mumbai by Indian Airlines flight, the cost was 8,000 rupees. Now, because of different airlines and competition, it comes to 2,500 rupees. So everywhere there is already the things are moving, things are changing. And now this is the time that I always tell to the people, the financial audit is very important, but performance audit is more important than financial audit. Those people who are not taking decision, those people who are not performing properly, we need to take action against them. I'm giving you the example only, which you are giving reference about it. That was construction of NHI building, main
I was
office
there.
in Delhi.
I
And
was in
that
your
was my
audience.
speech. Yes. And I fired the people that actually the time period was 2.5 years. It takes 12 years to complete. And from 130, 140 crore, it goes to 350 crores. So I think why did it delay? So corruption is not the only problem. There are some people who are in the government, they want promotion, but they don't want to take the decisions. And there is no time limit for taking decisions. That is also a big problem. And some of the people are delaying the decision because they want something from the other people. Without that, they don't have habit to move the fight. So this is not a problem related to any political party. This is the system. So now
See,
because
Mr.
of
Gadkari,
digitalization,
you don't have much time left, right? You're now actually, if you go to see, you're in the one half of your second term is almost over. When I see you, I mean the BJP. It's only 2020 and 2021 and 2022 which you have to deliver on job creation, on your growth trajectory to be improving? Because the last year of a government is only perception management. So, do you think that you can really revamp the system to such an extent and deliver on all your promises with regard to the Indian economy?
First of all, world is facing problem because of COVID. We are also facing the problem. And you are absolutely correct, as far as Shashiji also is correct. As far as the economic growth is concerned, it is not up to our expectation. We are trying our level best to increase the more liquidity in infrastructure field. We are now making the infrastructure of 111 lakh crores for making 5 trillion economy. We are planning for that. 6,488 projects are in pipeline. We are making a lot of investing. Now the foreign investment in India is also increased. Our FDI is also increased. But still, he is absolutely correct that present situation where we need to at least growth rate of 3%. At least we are expecting. We are trying, and up to end of this year, I am expecting that the way in which we are now moving, but still the COVID is, again, it's a problematic situation. But we need to understand the art of living with COVID-19. And by which COVID-19 also we need to win the war against our economic problems. So exactly, we are trying to create more liquidity in the market. We want to create more employment potential. We need to concentrate agriculture sector. Presently, 65% of population belongs to agriculture and rural area. The rural agriculture is facing crucial problem. The first time in the history, we have rice surplus, wheat surplus, corn surplus, sugar surplus. Our international price and market price is less than our MSP. These are the crucial problem where we are facing the problem. And my suggestion is agriculture growth rate where we need to increase. Without that, we cannot increase per capita income. Without development in rural agriculture and tribal area and 115 aspirant districts. There are challenges. What Mr. Shashi Tharoor is giving the reference of many problems. These are the problems. And I am really accepted all these problems. But now presently the way in which government is taking the decisions and our policies for liberal economy and encouraging the capital investment in the rural agriculture, tribal and aspirant district, and creating good infrastructure, planning for that, making 100 airports, new airports, making bullet trains, railway, then making road construction, then waterways. At the same time, we are, as far as the solar energy is concerned, we already break all previous records for green power. But still, the growth rate which we are expecting, and the end of this year, I am expecting that we will get exactly 3%. But still, we need more for that. And
so,
that is the need.
I'll interrupt you in that you spoke about agriculture. I'm going to move the question to Mr. Tharoor. Mr. Tharoor, it's, your party has blamed the current government for everything that is wrong. Mr. Gadkari's party has done in the past everything his party has also blamed your party when they were in the opposition. I get the politics of it. But what we are seeing in India today, or since the end of 2018, is this rising discontent and anarchic protests, street protests, which call for the throwing off of a democratically elected government. It began with the Citizens Amendment law protests and now the farm bills. I get it that some of the protests are organic in nature, but it's hard to believe that it is just that. It's just protests against the agriculture bills. Clearly, your party members and leaders have called for a revolution and an overthrow of the BJP government. Now, without going into the merits of these laws, could you tell us whether your party is involved in these protests, and do you agree with this, with the notion that the agriculture laws are so severe, so negative that it needs an overthrow of the BJP government?
Look, first of all, we have not called for a revolution. We have not called for overthrow. Am I audible? Am I clear?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to say that that's a simple mischaracterization, Smita, of anything we've said. We respect the people's mandate. We are a loyal opposition, loyal to the Constitution of India. But we have a profound problem with the way in which the government has gone about on a number of the decisions it's made. Demonetization in 2016, indeed the Citizenship Amendment Act, the botched and hasty rollout of GST, and now this disgraceful business of the farm laws, because the government seems to absolutely disrespect the need for democratic consultation. And I say this somewhat ruefully because I was a member of UPA 2, where I saw how many good laws, in fact, the original GST was consulted extensively by two finance ministers, Chidambaram and Pranab Mukherjee, and they both ran into severe opposition only from BJP ruled states, in particular from the then Chief Minister of Gujarat. But as a result, we didn't introduce it. We respected the views of the opponents of the draft. When it came to the farm laws, whom did the government talk to? Did they even present it to a parliamentary committee? You know, one of the shocking things about the way in which this government has behaved, from our point of view, is that they have acted as if having a majority in the Lok Sabha gives them the right to do what they want, and it doesn't matter who thinks. I mean, even seeing the way they function in Parliament by comparison with the way in which the UPA did. I mean, as a coalition, we also had a majority, but in every case, we respected the opposition. And honestly, with hindsight, I almost feel it was wrong that we gave the opposition a veto in some of the decisions that we were trying to make. Whereas this government doesn't give us any.
They want, when you say they do what they want, these are two laws which were passed in Parliament. They have the numbers in Parliament. They passed it in Parliament.
But had they gone to, as all, you know, when we were UPA was in power, 74% of all laws were first referred to a parliamentary committee. So views of MPs of all parties could be obtained. The committees also have the legal right to consult experts, stakeholders, citizens, get their views, and the government would have had those views. In the end of the day, the government can ignore what the parliamentary committee wants. The government can still go ahead with its laws, but at least it would know all the potential areas of opposition and concern. This was completely bypassed. Since the government was re-elected in 2019, not a single one of the bills it has passed has been through a parliamentary committee, not one. And in its first term, that 74% of UPA dropped down to 25% under BJP. So I just want to tell you that you're looking at a situation where the government's lack of basic democratic instincts is a repudiation of the way in which our democracy has functioned for 70 odd years. And that's why they're facing the problem. Let me just finish answering your question, Smita. You asked me, are we instigating these protests? No. I wish we could have the capacity to do that. What we have essentially done is lend support to a spontaneous agitation done by the farmers themselves, by a multitude of farmer organizations who have coalesced together to indicate their very, very strong views on this matter. And from my point of view, I think that showing solidarity with the popular movement is a perfectly normal thing for a government to do, for an opposition party to do, and we're doing it. But we will not either claim the credit or deserve the credit for actually having started or conducted or maintained these farmer agitations. These are genuinely the farmers' protests.
Okay. Now, before I go to the students for their questions, quick responses I want from both of you. Since this conference is being held virtually, though, in a university campus, our viewers are mostly students. So I have a question for both of you on your visions or plans for job creation in India, because, you know, a McKinsey report reveals that India is in a make or break situation where economic reforms could create 90 million jobs in the next decade. Mr. Gadkari, you go first. How does the Modi government plan on providing employment to millions of young Indians who are looking for non-farm jobs? I'm specific in this, non-farm jobs. And then, Mr. Tharoor, I come to you for the same question.
This is the most important thing for the country. And job creation is very important. I feel that this is the most of the important issue for the country. First of all, development in infrastructure, water, power, transport, communication, airports, waterways, shipping, then road construction, everywhere. We are expecting, when we will complete this next regime of 5 years, we are expecting the development of infrastructure of 111 lakh crore. And that is exactly the dream of our Prime Minister, to make Indian economy of 5 trillion. So this type of infrastructure investment, it is not only from government, it is from the public-private sector, it is from the foreign investment, and is all type of investment coming together to create more employment potential in the country. That is the first thing. Second thing, presently we have a lot of imports. For example, imports of crude oil. So that is, it is an import of 8 lakh crore. And as a my ministry, we are constantly, already we have giving approval for scrapping policy. Presently, our automobile industry's turnover is 4,50,000 crore. And maximum job creator is the automobile industry. Now, by scrapping policy, we are going to reduce the cost because of copper, aluminum, steel, plastic, and rubber will be available low cost. And making recycling of it, we can reduce the cost of the vehicle by 25 to 30% at least. We have got all type of technology. The lithium ion battery, 81% now we are making in India. We are now making research already in aluminum ion, zinc ion, air ion, hydrogen fuel cell. And the most important thing is diversification of agriculture toward energy and power sector. Our ethanol economy is 20,000 crore presently. We want to make it of 2 lakh crore. So by which we are going to create jobs. And at the MSME, industry, the foreign investment, infrastructure, by which I am 100% confident that we will create jobs. Now, I'm just giving you the example in MSME.
Just to interrupt you, Mr. Gadkari, I don't think I have ever done an interview with you not mentioning ethanol. I think this is probably 10 years that I've been interviewing you, and I just wait. Ab to bolenge Gadkari ji ethanol without.
This is the mission of my life from 12 years.
Yeah.
That diversification of agriculture towards energy and power sector. We don't need to import this fossil fuel. We are fully competent. Now I just launched a tractor making bio CNG from rice straw, and where the bio CNG rate is 42 rupees per kg and the diesel rate is 80 rupees per liter, and the average is 4 kilometers for both. So 100% because of Parli, you are facing the pollution problem in Delhi. So yeah. I don't go into details about it, but making alternative of 3 lakh crores of biofuel sector, we can run our aviation also on that. We have got the successful technology.
There's a reason why you are the ideas man in Mr. Modi's cabinet. So I'm going to quickly go to Mr. Tharoor.
I want to tell you one thing.
Sure.
I'm giving you the challenge with my, don't take it in the other way. Whatever the idea I am giving every time, I have got the proven example for that, and I prove that.
I've seen it. I've seen it in your constituency also, Mr. Gadkari.
Automobile industry is going to create at least 60 to 70 lakhs new jobs. And within 5 years, India is going to become a #1 manufacturing hub of all automobiles, including e-car, e-vehicle, e-two-wheelers, e-four-wheelers, and even for now we are making e-trucks. So this is the future for India. Now the second thing, we need more foreign investment. We need public-private investment in airports, in railway, in shipping and ports and road everywhere, by which we are going to create more employment potential. I am confident that next up to the end of 5 years, our government will create 5 crore new jobs. And innovation, entrepreneurship, science, technology, research, skilled and successful practices. We name it as a knowledge and conversion of knowledge into wealth is the future. Our students who are there in the Harvards, the IT engineers, the all type of intelligent people who have got a lot of new innovation, research, by which India is going to become a super economic power, and by which we will eradicate the poverty and we will create more employment potential. And that is to be, we will make India as a #1 global economy. It will take some time, but we are on the right path and we are going to achieve that goal.
Mr. Tharoor, I'm going to come to you, but because we're running short of time, I'm going to take it with a question from one of the students, one of the viewers, Mr. Keshav Jindal. He has a question which he says that how can we change the mindset of civil servants and bureaucrat? I mean, he wants a single point strategy. You know, you're a member of parliament from Kerala, in case some of our viewers don't know. It's a state where you have a communist governed state, and you have a left-wing government in Kerala, and then you have a comparatively non-confrontational attitude with a right-wing government at the center. Now, there are states which are at constant loggerheads with the center. This is the center-state dynamics of of our system. But for the overall business environment, does it foster job creation? I'm weaving in all these concepts.
No,
So
you
quick response.
you've weaved in too many things, Smita. They don't all
Sorry,
connect.
sorry.
Let me come back to Nitin Gadkari's answer and surprise you by saying I actually applaud his vision. If he can fulfill that vision, we would all be happy. If I express any skepticism, it's because there are some things that are omitted in getting there. One of which, unfortunately, is the failure of this government to reform and to back reform in the education system. Above all, to ensure that our graduates are suited to the job market. As you know, educational spending declined in the last budget, even though the new education policy has been announced. I worry about that. Second, I think that tax system really needs work. I remember having a quarrel with my good friend Arun Jaitley, the late Arun Jaitley, when he was finance minister, about his announcing a tax holiday for new businesses. And I said 3 years of a tax holiday for a startup means nothing, because most startups don't make profits in their first 3 years. I said, instead, for God's sake, give a break to the angel investors. Give them incentives to invest so they'll pour money into these businesses and help start up more businesses. It took them 2 years to do that. And finally, in the last budget, they've done it. Let's hope it works. And that the investors will come in larger numbers. Because right now, there's been for many, many years of rather heavy and unnecessary taxation on the investors, which has disincentivized entrepreneurship and startups. The government's failure to ensure an efficient judicial system has brought contract enforcement to a practical halt. How can business be done in a condition where 33 million cases are pending in district and subordinate courts, more than 4 million in the high courts, and even in the Supreme Court, there are 65,000 cases pending. I think one of which may be mine.
Mr. Gadkari has agreed with all your contention, Mr. Tharoor.
So I'm agreeing with Mr. No, these are new contention. These ones I haven't made already today. So I just want to say that he has a vision, but we have to attend to all of these nitty-gritty things in order to make it work. And he already mentioned state governments have a very key role, and that ties me into your question. Yes, I think a state government, for example, in Kerala, despite the fact that it'll certainly be either a leftist government or a Congress-led government, will have to cooperate with the central government. And as I say, I have having had first-hand experience of cooperating with Nitin Gadkari and his ministry, I believe it can be done. But there's got to be good faith on both sides, and there can't be an attempt made in any way to undermine. I do want to express my apprehension about Atmanirbhar Bharat. If it boils down into protectionism and moves towards deglobalization, India will suffer. We cannot afford to turn inwards. We cannot grow economically. We cut ourselves off from the world. I don't think Nitin Gadkari wants to do that, but the slogan and the bureaucrats who have to implement the slogan do worry me. And I do want to say that there has to be a little more proactive response to the needs of ordinary Indians who are suffering, because, for example, Dr. Manmohan Singh proposed a government-backed credit guarantee scheme to soften the immediate blow of the pandemic without warping long-term financial viability. Nothing like that has emerged from any of Mrs. Sitharaman's statements. So we do well in a now scrapped ease of doing business index, but we do badly in the human development index, where we are still in the 130s. Our unemployment is the highest ever recorded. Our suicide rate is the highest in Asia. Partly, I'm sure, because of the devastating economic situation.
Now we're going.
No, I'm just saying. I want Nitin Gadkari's vision to be fulfilled, but I want him and his government to also pay attention to the ordinary people who are ultimately the objectives of all
You better watch out what you're asking for, because if you give such a long list, he will say we need one more term. Are you ready to give them another term?
I think he can. If he joins us, I'm sure we'll give him good work.
Good one, Mr.
Outstanding at implementing.
He's
but
thrown
we're
a
not
gauntlet out there.
But,
okay, I have a question from the audience. Shreya Singh
But
says,
I didn't answer the student's question. Mindset is a genuine problem. Mindset of bureaucracy is a genuine problem. And I think Nitin Gadkari's way is the best way, which is to actually call a spade a shovel and blame them directly when they fail to perform. They are very often dilatory in clearing files, clearing decisions. We pass a law saying some decision has been made within 7 days. On the 6th day, they will raise an objection on the file or raise a question on the file, and a new deadline will be triggered. So the 7 days never gets done.
So shouldn't you sympathize with him, Mr. Tharoor? I mean, you've been a bureaucrat.
No, I sympathize with Nitin Bhai. He knows. I've not been a bureaucrat in the Indian government, so I speak very much as an outsider.
You speak with international organizations and with you faced bureaucratic hurdles, so you know what it is like to be in government. So you understand the hurdles.
Totally.
And
So on that, I'm with the minister. I'm absolutely with Nitin Gadkari on the question of the way in which our bureaucrats
goodness.
can
I've never had two panelists agree so much with each other as today. Mr. Gadkari,
just on this subject.
Mr. Gadkari, a question with Mr. Shreyas from Shreyas Singh from the audience. He said that my question is to Mr. Gadkari. When we talk about business in India, the foreign investors usually look for a stable nation and a simpler taxation rules. In the present scenario, the nation doesn't seem to be stable enough, as people usually protest and go on protests and prefer strikes. In such cases, firms won't invest in India, is this person's reading, because China promises cheaper labor force and simpler trade rules. Also in India, businessmen have to keep local netas happy. Again, we come into the corruption issue, which makes them, they have to sort out and keep amounts ready for these netas, he says. So how are you going to solve these problems? So basically corruption, red tapeism, and hurdles put in the way for ease of doing business.
Actually, frankly speaking, the way in which the global investors today inclined to India for making investment in different type of business. Now you are talking about the infrastructure. You talk about shipping, ports, everywhere, even railway also. Now there is a lot of foreign investors, they are giving very, very positive signals. Even in MSME also, we have decided funds of fund, where our MSME is going to take capital from the capital market, from stock exchange. And also we are getting good response for that. And there is a positivity in the mind of the people from Dubai, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. My suggestion is, now the agitation is not all over in India. It is in only in one state or two states. It's a problem. It is duty of the government to resolve the problem. But India is a democratic country, and where every time from last many years, either it is in Congress regime or it is a BJP regime or any state belongs to left party also, everywhere the agitations are going on. Because in democracy, we are all expected all these things. It is not new for us. But at the same time, the routine system, the transparent system, giving encouragement to the foreign investment. And today the atmosphere is very friendly for investment. And a lot of foreign investors are giving good response. Presently, these are not the problem. I accept one thing, that there are some problems because they have to deal with the state government, the municipal administration, the central government, lot of agencies. We are trying to our level best to make the system transparent, time bound, result oriented, and performance oriented. But still, I accept that we need to do many more things to change the system. But our intention is clear. We are always trying to make the target that how it can be friendly for investment, how they'll get all type of permission. Now for environment and forest clearance, there was lot of procedures. We have reduced the time period. Lot of decision has already recommended to the ministry now, and they are taking the decision, because there was 1 year delay for getting a license for forest and environment clearance was a big problem. Then regarding the taking clearances from the,
Mr. Gadkari, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Just late last night, you sanctioned millions of dollars from your Ministry for Highway and Road Construction in several states, and that includes non-BJP governments, including states which are like, which might have seen these agitations that Mr. Tharoor referred and which you are talking about. How can state governments take more active role to be in the same page as far as attracting investment and from abroad and for fostering entrepreneurship? Just a couple of hours ago at the Niti Aayog, Delhi Chief Minister has said that, create manufacturing hubs in all states, not just, BJP rule state, but all states, whereby you give tax breaks. And that's the only way to compete with China as far as manufacturing goes. Do you agree with that point of view?
Actually, frankly speaking, in my ministry, I never mix politics with development. You check it from any Congress MP, CPM MP, or any chief minister belong to any party. When it comes to me, I always tell to my people, there are problems. That's the reason that MP and the minister or the chief minister is coming to me. And always I have a positive attitude that how I can resolve that problem. I have a lot of discussion with the different type of chief ministers. I am giving you an example of Kerala. I'm not talking politics. The gas pipeline was a big issue in Kerala. Mr. Shashi Tharoor knows that.
Very
At
well.
that time, I was constantly pursue that. But the CPM chief minister on his regime has taken some bold decision and he resolved the problem. So CPM is not anti-development. Everyone has their political philosophy and ideas already there. But my experience with different type of people, different type of parties, and different type of MPs, you can go to any MP belong to any political party and ask him. He will tell you that Nitin Gadkari has done maximum to my constituency. You go to
Mr.
Mamata
Tarun,
Banerjee, you do anybody. So my suggestion is, first of all, we need to mix up politics with development. I never treat, when Shashi Tharoor comes to me as a member of parliament, I will never think that he belongs to Congress or BJP or it. When he talk about his problem in constituency, equally, if suppose there is a BJP MP or may not be maybe a Congress MP, I always have a positive attitude to resolve that issue, and that is exactly we need in politics. We can fight on the basis of ideology with each other on the battleground of the election. But at the time when the election is close, we need to help everybody because India is not only belongs to BJP or Congress, it is belongs to 130 crore Indians and everyone has right. So our approach should be very positive, integrated, and it should be helpful for everybody. That is exactly the spirit of the democracy. And I feel that from Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the inspiration, motivation which always we are getting, it is exactly that democratic principles are the mission for us.
So, Mr. Gadkari, I think we're running out of time. So I just want just very, very short answers from both of you because there's one question which is very pertinent from a viewer. He says, Nishank Upadhyay says, that what role do you think the shift in e-governance will play with respect for ease of doing business in our country? Mr. Tharoor, you please go first. Just one sentence answer because we're running out of time.
No, if it works, if it's applied, of course it'll make a huge difference because obviously this entire business of looking for the file, losing the file, moving the file, all that will stop if you can actually do everything digitally. But even things like digitizing land records has not been possible in the vast majority of our states. So e-governance at the moment is an aspiration, not a reality. The government, unfortunately, has focused much more on some of the tools of surveillance and of control that comes possible with e-governance rather than facilitation and ease of dealing with government. We talked about ease of doing business. If we actually had effective digitization and e-governance, it would make it easier for the ordinary public to deal with the government. Instead of going to an office when you have lost a loved one, queuing up for a death certificate and being deliberately kept waiting and sent back and made to come back time and time again because the fellow knows that you can't do anything without that death certificate, and unless you slip him something under the table, it's not going to be done. Something like a death certificate ought to be popped out of a computer within 48 hours, and it should be happening across the board to all sorts of other services from government, but we are not yet there. Government talks a good game. I'd like to see it happen.
Mr. Gadkari, quickly before I wrap up, please.
Actually, the digital, exactly that is the need of the country. We need to expedite the things and by which we can make remarkable change in the system. So our government is trying our level best. We are doing a lot of decisions making for that. But now this is the time that by which we can at least fulfill the expectation of the people by and large. And we are 100% trying for that.
Thank you very much. I think we've pretty much exhausted the time allotted to us. Thank you, Mr. Gadkari and Mr. Tharoor, for being part of this conference and for demystifying some very complicated puzzles. I hand the floor back to the India conference at Harvard.
Ma'am, thank you, Minister Gadkari. Thank you, Dr. Tharoor. I think it's rare to see two strong voices, one from the government, one from the opposition, to come together in a sensible, respectful, and bipartisan discussion. So thank you both for your time. It was great to see the bromance as well. And so with that, I'll ask my teammate to please share the screen on the next sessions. You all could log off if that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Krishna, could you please share the screen with the sessions for the next day? Yeah. It's not this one. It's the one with the events for day 2 and day 3. All right. Anyhow, so we have a list of events for the rest of the day today. You can go to www.india-conference.com and see the agenda for both day 2 and day 3. And I again thank everyone for being here today and attending the session. Kriti, if you can please shut the webinar, please. Thank you.